I definitely really enjoyed the Zack Snyder Superman and
Man of
his
Steel. I did too.
and
And dude,
I don't get
lifelong
people's
Superman fan here, dude. I'm a fucking lifer of the character.
I just
Anyways, I'm sorry, God.
well I just don't get people's hate for Zack Snyder.
I
I
don't
mean,
either.
he's made some great fucking movies.
I know, like everyone forget how good 300 was,
Yeah, I mean
and that was
300
a comic book movie, and he fucking destroyed that
and it
movie.
was fucking looks. I mean, if it's the closest thing to the actual source material as it can be. I mean, it looked great. Now, Sucker Punch was a stink fest. I mean, it was horrible. Let's admit that. But
Zack
Dawn of
Snyder's
the
like,
Dead was.
I should go back to comic books now.
I love
But
Dawn of
dude,
the Dead.
Watchmen. We cannot forget
Dude,
Watchmen.
I love Watchmen, and there's
Me
so many
too.
people that hate that movie, and
Why?
I don't get it, and I've got
It's
the
so close to the comic book. Like they changed the stupid octopus thing at the end was like the only thing they left out. I'm like, what
and
more do you want?
Rorschach was everything I imagined him to be,
Hell yes.
and you know I've got the graphic novel, I've got the comic books, the Alan
Yeah.
Moore comic books, and
Yeah.
you know I don't get it. Like you know, there's a lot of people that love to hate Zack Snyder, but
I like Zack Snyder.
I
But no,
loved
Dawn of the Dead,
Man
you're
of
right.
Yeah, I mean
One of his first
pretty much
movies, dude, and he
everything
killed it.
pretty much everything he's put out has been
Yeah.
great except for Sucker Punch. And
Yeah.
you know, Sucker Punch, they probably just gave him free reign to do whatever after 300.
Zack Snyder, he needs a writer.
Yeah.
Like he does. Like Dawn of the Dead, for example, was written by James Gunn, who did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
So
I
it's-
didn't know that.
It's not a big. He also wrote Scooby Doo, which is like,
Yeah.
well, he
What was
can't
going
win them
on
all,
with
but no, I mean, he comes back and he writes after Scooby Doo. He writes the Dawn of the Dead movie. I was like, it's written by the fucking Scooby Doo guy. What the hell does he know about zombies? But dude, Dawn of the Dead, the remake, and I'm sure I'm gonna get some freaking hate from the Romero fans, guys. I love the original Romero movies; they're fucking awesome. But I'm gonna call a spade here. The second Dawn of the Dead is head and shoulders above the original as far as what's the better movie. Infinitely better than the original. I love the original Dawn of the Dead, but they was like, oh, they're not slow zombies. Slow zombies are scarier. Okay, guys, that's subjective. I don't think a slow zombie is scary. I think a zombie
fast
that runs like a
zombie.
fucking Kenyan,
Right.
that shit is scary
Right.
because you can't just be like weaving in and out of them. You know, like no, you actually have to run. You know, or better yet, need a car. And that was the whole thing with adding Andy, you know, the guy who's on the other side of the freaking lot, you know, adding a character who wasn't in the mall that they could communicate with. I was like, guys, this is what makes a good writer. I understand it's a plot device, but it's a really fucking great plot device.
Right.
Like this gives us so much exposition and a dynamic between the characters because they're not that far apart. They're like a couple hundred yards apart physically, but it might as well be the fucking Atlantic Ocean because there's an ocean of the freaking undead waiting down there to rip them apart. So let's talk about Batman vs Superman, obviously, since we're going on a Zack Snyder tirade here. Okay, this one is definitely dividing people a lot more than Suicide Squad, and I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Robert, love you, buddy. Who he's not a DC hater. He's really not. He is almost as big of a fan of Superman as I am. We've had many conversations about it, but as far as the movies, he's kind of more on the Marvel side. You know, he's definitely leaning towards that. He wanted Man of Steel to be good, but like a lot of people, he was just really disappointed. Like, I want to see the Big Blue Boy Scout, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, guys, I'm all for that, man. Like, I really am. I'm for Superman being fucking Superman. But at the same time, I'm one of the few people who instantly got it in the end of Man of Steel. Spoilers for like all three of you who haven't seen it. When he snapped Zod's neck, like in that instance, maybe it's just Henry Cavill being an experienced actor. It immediately registered with me what that moment signified. That this was basically Superman becoming the Big Blue Boy Scout. Like, because he literally had to kill the last of his kind, basically singularly orphaning himself and making himself the last Kryptonian. In that motion, even though, you know, did Zod have it coming? Did he deserve to die? Absolutely. He's a fucking murdering psychopath. Yes, he needed to go. But Superman literally destroyed what was left of Krypton, with the exception of him to save Earth. And at the same time, that made perfect sense to me why that moment would be the reason why he chooses not to kill. You know, for the same reason that Batman chooses not to kill, because it happened to his parents. And he's like, I don't want anyone to feel like me. I think Superman in this version is kind of taking that same path. He doesn't want anyone to have to feel what he had to feel, to kill one of his own kind, because let's face it, Superman is the ultimate immigrant. He's the last of his species, and there's no one else in the universe like him. Like, him being himself makes him inherently different. You know, he's always going to have to walk a different path from everybody just because he's not human. He's a fucking alien. So, you know, a literal alien. So I applauded Zack Snyder for taking that risk. You know, this is the first time on screen we've ever seen Superman take a life. And all the people are like, Superman's never fucking done this. All right, first of all, if you're saying that, you don't know shit about comic books, all right? Superman has actually killed several people. It's not been in a murderous, like, his brain's being taken over kind of way. No, he just recently destroyed an entire planet, accidentally, with his new power called, well, yeah, he did technically, but he has a new power called Solar Flare, which is basically an extension of heat vision, where, as Batman explained it, Superman's cells, I'm going to totally geek out with you guys here, you're about to be fucking science, so buckle up. Superman's cells, each of them individually, are like miniature solar batteries, where they basically contain solar radiation, which make him who he is. And he inadvertently, throughout the course of this particular comic book arc, accidentally unleashes the solar energy from every cell in his body all at once. So it's kind of like heat vision without any control, like where he's basically setting off a solar bomb. And you've seen what he can do just with heat vision in Man of Steel. He's cutting buildings in half like a fucking chainsaw. Imagine a nuclear bomb powered by that same technology. It literally destroyed an entire planet. And he took the bad guy with him. Granted, he didn't do that willingly. He just got pissed at this guy and, yeah, fuck him. I'm going to take out his whole planet too. And he doesn't remember anything. He wakes up and he's like, what happened? And Batman's like, I think you basically created a solar bomb. So I could, going back to the core subject here, Batman vs. Superman, I think, and I'll never be able to say this for sure, and even if they go on record explaining this, as far as, was this the plan the entire time? Was this, you know, going to be the direction that they were going to head with the movies? Or was this a reaction to people not liking the end of Man of Steel, where, you know, he's knocking down buildings and like Metropolis is basically in ruins as a result of his actions? To be fair, all the Marvel fanboys saying that same thing. Guys, did you see the fucking Avengers? New York was a fucking bomb zone after they were done. I didn't hear anyone complaining about that. And I think they did probably a lot more damage. They're like, well, the aliens were invading New York. Okay, guys, Superman was dealing with a world engine. What the hell did you want him to do? Just move it to Ontario or something like that? Or the North Pole? He fought the bad guys where they were, same as the Avengers did. So let's cut the bullshit here.
I've got a question real quick.
Yeah, shoot it.
You know, in all this discussion about them destroying the cities, was the point lost on anybody that we're talking about a fucking movie, that there wasn't really there wasn't really destruction? Guys, it's okay. Metropolis isn't real. It really didn't get destroyed. New York City's okay. You know, monsters didn't, you know, come through and destroy the city. Guys, we're talking about a fucking movie.
I know. And a comic book movie, no less.
But see, one thing that I loved about Man of Steel was it was the one Superman movie to me that showed Superman's real power. You know, I mean, if two basically gods are fighting each other, a building isn't going to be shit. And I mean, you know, cutting buildings in half with your heat vision, like that is how it would be in real life. And
pretty much,
regardless of how many dollars in damage they did or whatever, you know, I think that's what it would be like if two gods were to do battle. And even though, you know, Superman's not a god, but I mean, you know, of course, in our planet, I mean, I don't know one superhero that really comes close to
I'm sure all the Superman's power. Thor and the Hulk, guys, really? Seriously? Like, against Superman? Like, no, I don't think so. Somebody's got to be at the top. Why not him?
And we're just talking about the invulnerability and the ability to fly and all that. I mean, he's got everything, you know?
Unless you have kryptonite, you don't stand a chance. That's
Right.
literally, or you can block out the sun, and in which case, all you're going to do is make him run his battery down. That's really the way he works. He's a giant moving solar battery. So as long as Earth has the yellow sun and it's still shining, he's not going to run out of juice. It's just that simple. So, okay, so on to the trailer. Okay. In my opinion, God, I hope I'm right about this. I think that this was the plan the entire time. I do not think that this was a knee-jerk reaction to people being mad about what we were just talking about with buildings being knocked down and them addressing it. If it is, if this is actually them kind of catching up to pop culture, guys, bravo. That's smart writing because they're rolling with the punches like, okay, well, why don't we make this work in the movie? Making Batman there at ground zero while this was actually happening, given who Bruce Wayne is, it's not a stretch of the imagination that he would have a building in Metropolis if it's supposed to be this huge New York-sized city in the middle of the heartland, out west that doesn't actually exist. It would make total sense that Wayne Enterprises would have a building there, and he might have been there on business or something, maybe to talk to Lex Luthor or, something, because he's a, freaking mover and a shaker, right? And just seeing like Bruce Wayne look up at the building, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, I don't know if you have seen this, but they tweeted a little vine showing how the two movies perfectly sync, where Zod is using his heat vision, and it shows the perspective of Bruce Wayne where you see the heat vision cutting through the building. It literally matches up perfectly. Like they put that much thought into this where you can see these two things happen in real time. It's a 1-to-1. I was like, wow, they really did their homework. And does it make sense that someone like Bruce Wayne, who is the definition of paranoid in a good way, I'm not saying it's bad, he is the ultimate paranoid superhero because he always has to be ahead of everyone else. Would he see Superman as a threat? Absolutely. I mean, because this is like his first run-in with a metahuman, or in Superman's case, an alien. Someone who's all of his technology and everything. It's just like, at the end of the day, dude, I mean, like you said, Superman's a god. I mean, it's like this dude is basically so far beyond humans' capabilities. Even with technology, it's just, unless you got kryptonite, you don't stand a chance. Would he see Superman as a threat? Totally. And what do you see, like, him being there in the aftermath? It was very 9/11-ish. If you watch it, it almost looked like, it reminded me at least of the towers coming down. And somebody standing there at ground zero, like this kind of 9/11 level event where a major city is basically demolished because of, well, I guess you could call Zod's team terrorists. I mean, they were trying to take over the world, basically. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Superman stopped the terrorists and saved the goddamn planet. Yeah, okay, so we had to sacrifice one city. 6 billion lives were saved. Yeah, okay, I think that's noteworthy. And I think it's cool that we all know how it's going to end, that they're going to put their differences aside and realize that neither of them are right, or neither of them are wrong, and both of them are right. They have different approaches to things. Like Batman's thing is paranoid and planning and everything like that, and Superman is Superman. Like, he always looks for the good in people. He always tries to diffuse the situation rather than resulting to violence. And I think Zack Snyder really nailed it in the end of Man of Steel when Superman's standing there and he took down a satellite because they were basically trying to spy on him. They're like, we're just not sure what your intentions are from America. And he's like, really? I'm from Kansas, dude. I mean, it's just like, Superman is America. He's baseball. He's apple pie. He's from the heartland, for God's sake. He was raised on a fucking farm. I mean, like, how much more American can you be, dude? He's the ultimate country boy. I mean, he refers to himself all that. He's like, like Batman, he's an urbanite. I'm just a country boy, who happens to be from a different fucking planet. But it's, I, as a fan of both of these things, and in the comics, guys, they're best friends. Bruce Wayne and Clark are pals. Do they agree on everything? No. As a matter of fact, the majority of the time, they disagree. When in one of the more recent arcs, when Batman actually, Bruce Wayne, quote unquote, died, although that didn't really happen, there's a conversation between Superman and Wonder Woman where Clark is always just like, I never thought Bruce really liked me all that much. I figured he just tolerated me. And then Diana has this look on her face of absolute bewilderment. Like, she's like, are you serious? She's like, he had nothing but respect for you. He actually looked up to you in certain capacities. He didn't agree with everything on you, but he saw you for what you were, as like the ultimate good guy, that you would always do the right thing. And it's seeing the dichotomy between these two characters because they are so diametrically opposed, almost to the point of almost being superhero versus supervillain in some weird alternate universe, even though they're both on the same side. You know, Batman is the brains, the tactics, the strategy. You know, the last guy in the world that you want to play chess against. Because when you sit down at the table, he's already going to have you beat. He's going to be 50 moves ahead of you. And Superman is just a force of nature. You know, I mean, he's literally bulletproof, bomb-proof, you know, everything but kryptonite proof. You know, he's the ultimate tank that you would want on your team when you're facing a supervillain. And on top of that, we're getting Wonder Woman, we're getting Aquaman, we're getting The Flash, like all this in small doses leading up to the next movie, the Justice League movie. Guys, I think that's fantastic. And I'm going to have to call out Pat the NES Punk on this one, Pat. Love you guys. Okay, so Pat called Gal Gadot not very... He didn't regard her as, I'll call, exceptionally tall, because they were giving her a little bit of flack, you know, for playing Wonder Woman. He's like, I don't think the build is right and stuff like that. Yeah, guys, does she look like a professional bodybuilder? No. She's a woman from Israel. I don't think that that's ever going to happen. But not calling her exceptionally tall, guys, she's 5'10". That would make her a supermodel. And they kind of only take exceptionally tall, and his take on it, like, you know, Wonder Woman's 6'2" and blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, in the comics she is because she's an Amazon. She's not a human. Okay, well, Superman is supposed to be 6'4", and Henry Cavill is only 6'1". So, am I that upset about? No, guys, come on, we're splitting hairs here. She's 5 inches taller than the average woman. Does that make her freakishly tall? You know, above 6 feet? No. But how many 5'10" girls do you see walking around who aren't wearing heels? In my neck of the woods, not that many.
Well, they don't necessarily have to cast somebody that's that tall. I mean, you know, movie magic, they can...
I know.
I mean...
Has anyone seen The Lord of the Rings, for God's sake?
Right. And Tom Cruise is in a ton of movies, and he's like...
And he's 5'7".
Right.
You know,
so
it's like...
And he doesn't look like a midget, you know, compared to...
No, he doesn't.
Anybody else.
I think that's the best movie magic ever, is that they make Tom Cruise not look short.
Right.
Yeah, or Robert Downey Jr., for example. He's 5'7" too, and he plays Iron Man. In your opinion, is 5'10" acceptable for somebody who's playing Wonder Woman?
I think so.
I think that's, for someone who can act and who's naturally beautiful, because all the Amazons are, they're like this super race of godlike, beautiful women who are the size of men. I mean, she's eye to eye with Superman in the comic books. Like, she's the only woman, aside from maybe Supergirl, who can stand up to Superman. Like, she could take a direct hit in the face and be like, is that all you got, bitch? You know, I mean, it's... And seeing her doing the bracers and shit, guys, I was ecstatic. I mean, like, we haven't seen Wonder Woman, really, since Linda Carter.
Right.
Since the fucking 70s, man. It's like, come on. How can you not be excited for this?
It's hard to do Wonder Woman. I'm really excited to see how they pull it off without it, you know, being cheesy. And from what it looks like, you know, it's looking like it's going to be pretty sweet so far. And yeah, I just don't get the people hating on Ben Affleck as Batman. I mean, everything he's been in lately, he's been knocking it out of the park. The Town, Gone Girl. I mean, come on.
Has everyone forgotten that Ben Affleck's failures are like this and his wins are like this? Right. It's like, guys, he and Matt Damon hold the world record for the youngest people ever to receive the writing Oscar. The first movie he wrote won a fucking Oscar. Holy shit. I mean, like, you know who else did that? Sylvester Stallone for Rocky.
Right.
And he was almost the same age. He was, I think, was 3 years older than them. So they basically kicked him out of the record by being the youngest guys ever to win an Oscar. And yeah, The Town, Argo, which he wrote, you know, directed, and starred in. Mm-hmm. Guys, he's not an idiot. I mean, he's really, they're treating him like he's some kind of a hack or something who's only done like piece of shit movies and stuff. I mean, guys, has he done some stinkers? Sure. So is Anthony Hopkins.
Right. I mean,
so is Daniel Day-Lewis.
He's so far past Geely and Jersey Girl and all that shit, you know. And
so he did some pieces of shit. Big deal.
He did Daredevil, and you know, Daredevil wasn't the greatest movie, but you know that's in the past now. So, but you know, like with Suicide Squad, you know, I'm gonna keep my mind open. You know, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to say, you know, it's great or not yet, but or it's going to be great. But you know, Zack Snyder, the past few comic book movies that he's made, you know, 300, Watchmen, Man of Steel have all been great. So
I couldn't
I'm
agree more.
I'm gonna trust him on this. I'm
I
gonna trust that he knows what he's doing.
I thought the dude I have watched so many times the flight sequence where he first learns to fly from Men of Steel on YouTube, probably a couple of dozen times. That I thought was the best example of showing what it would be like for a guy basically learning to master how to fly because it's all in his head. You know, he's basically
Right.
forcing levitation. And if he fails the first time, it's not like, I know I'm going to get some hate on this, but the Christopher Reeve version where he just like flies out of the cave like it's effortless the first time. That's not how it would work. He may have the powers, but it's like the fucking Matrix. Everyone falls the first time. Yes, like he's gonna fail the first time. That movie was basically him learning what it means to be Superman. He's
And
not going to get everything right the first time because, yeah, he's an alien, but guys, he was raised as a human and we are known for our mistakes. That's what we do best is fuck up. But we also learn to be better than that. So, I mean, dude, for my money, dude, that was the most human of all the Superman movies. That showed that Superman, yes, he's an alien, yes, he's a god, but as far as who he is, he's one of us. He's a human. He's going to screw things up. And I'm sure he's going to atone for that in this next one. I'm sure Batman wants to tear him an asshole and be like, do you have any idea what you've done?
right.
I just want to see, I want to see the exchange between them that has happened before in the comics that I think is the best singular exchange of one conversation between two superheroes when they first meet, where Batman's just like, he's like, you can't exist. Like, no one being should have this kind of power. And then Superman's like, I'm a duly appointed officer of the United Nations. You're an outlaw. Like, because that's really the way it is. Like, Superman is like the police of the world, and Batman just does whatever he wants.
Right.
So I'll close and say I'm really looking forward to this, guys. I'm really excited, and I hope it's going to be great. I really hope they get this one right.